Just notice as you start to highlight the rectangle, notice the surface contact of the tape on the mat. It may all be touching the mat or it may not be. A lot of times if you've stretched it really wide, because our butt kind of curves up, you may not feel the outer edges on the mat, but just get a sense of what part of it actually has the surface contact on the mat. Notice with the surface contact, if it feels even from left to right. It may feel like if you find your center, kind of where your top of your tailbone is and where your butt crack starts, you may notice that there's more surface contact to one side of that than the other. Notice if your awareness of the bottom edge of the tape that's furthest away from your head and the top edge of the tape that's right where the top of the tail is. Notice your awareness of that area. And notice if you can sense both sides of the tape, the furthest away from your head and the closest to your head equally, or if it feels like one side is more aware in your mind's eye. You also might notice that the surface contact is just greater on one side than the other. It may feel heavier at the base or at the top. Again, when you think about the movement of the band is water, it's fascia, and so it's a kind of water, ground substance, sticky substance, and so it can shift. If you think about the idea of a sandbag that's on the floor and how it has sand on the inside, even though it's still resting flat on the floor, all the sand can shift to one side or it can shift to another. And so our butt band in movement, you'll start to feel pressure shift on it, but rather than the surface contact completely changing so that one end might be off the ground and one being on the ground, it'll start to keep more of a consistent surface contact on the ground. Notice in this position if you have any sense of the back of the band facing straight down into the mat, or maybe towards your feet, or maybe slightly more towards the top of your head. If you bring your arms up to the ceiling, start to take your arms over your head to the wall behind you and just notice if anything changes with your awareness of your butt band. Notice if the pressure of it changes. Does it feel like more or less surface contact starts to come down onto the mat? And then bring your arms back down towards your waist. And just do that a few times, getting a sense. Notice if anything changes in your mind's eye. The more surface contact that the tape has on the mat, that the butt band has, you'll start to be able to sense shifting, and you'll start to sense a shifting of pressure without necessarily the surface contact changing. You may feel like the surface contact changes a lot, so it becomes more like a teeter-totter, that when one end goes down, the other end pops up off the mat versus keeps its surface contact. Notice as your arms go over your head, if you start to sense the butt band facing a different way than when your arms come all the way down by your waist. Do that again. Notice as your arms go overhead how your AC line starts to look down at your butt band. Notice if your butt band is looking back at your AC line. As you start to bring your arms down, you may start to feel how your AC line looks at the wall behind you or towards the top of your head. Notice if your butt band changes its position. Do that once or twice more. Again, notice if you feel any shifting or changing. Notice if one side just seems like it's a stronger awareness for you than the other. You can let your arms come down and then bring them out to your sides. If you bend your knees and put your feet flat, keep them relatively away from you so you still feel pressure of the butt band down. If you walk your feet too close to you, it may feel like it lifts up. If you start to bring your heels towards one another and off the mat so your knees fall open to the outside, Just notice as your knees are opening to the outside, notice where the weight is, the pressure is on the butt band. Does it feel more to the base, towards your feet? Does it feel more towards your head? Maybe it shifted more to the right or the left side. And then if you start to bring your knees up by swinging your heels down and out, notice how it shifts or changes. Try that a few times and just notice if you feel a rocking or a shifting of pressure. Notice if it feels like one end maybe pops up off the mat or it increases its pressure down. And then just kind of go back and forth, letting your heels come in and up to open your knees outward, and then letting your heels come down and out to bring your knees upward. Notice as your heels start to come together and your knees start to open, notice if you feel any pressure shifting to the base. If you were to think about an eyeball on the back of the band, would it look more towards your head, straight down into the mat, or towards your feet? As your feet swing down and out and your knees come up, notice again if the eyeball's changed its position. Would it look straight down into the mat, more towards your feet, more towards your head? Do that once or twice more, noticing changes that happen. Notice if it feels like the surface contact of the butt band is pretty consistent all the way across from top to bottom, right to left, or does it feel like part of it wants to ever lift or lower? Bring your feet back up to center. Slide your right leg out and notice what happens to the right side of the butt band. Notice where the pressure is. And then just bring your right knee back in and do that a few times on the right. Notice when your knee comes more towards you, does it feel like the bottom of the butt band totally lifts? And if it's helpful, you can kind of put your hand where you feel the tape, and you can get a sense of where the tape is, and then you might have a better sense of if it's lifting or lowering. If the tape was stretched far enough, you can kind of feel it on the outside edge of your butt because it curves around to the side. Notice when your knee comes in, if the bottom of the band stays down or if it wants to lift more off the mat. Try the other side. Notice if this side is more or less clear to you. Again, maybe there's more shifting on the band on this side. Notice if you feel like you can feel the shift from top to bottom on the band, or maybe you feel a greater shift from right to left. Maybe it feels like one side gets heavier than the other as your leg goes out, and then it may rock to the other side as your knee comes in. Alternate legs, do the right side, and notice if there's equal pressure on the right and the left side. And then bring it back in, and then do the left. Notice again if you sense equal surface contact onto the mat. Notice again if you start to feel that tipping of pressure, so it feels like the eyeball on the band would look more at one end of your body than the other. If you try both legs together, notice where the band pressure is on the mat, and notice as your legs extend if it drops lower, more towards your feet, or if it gets higher towards your head. And then as you start to bring your knees in, notice again how the pressure shifts, and you might start to feel more of the rocking motion. And then do that again. Notice as your legs extend, notice if you can feel a pressure shift lower to the bottom edge of the tape, the bottom edge of the band. Notice when your knees come towards you, does the band teeter-totter, so the top end goes down but the bottom lifts up? Or is the bottom end still down, you just feel more of the pressure at the top end? Do that once or twice or more. Again, notice if you can start to feel the rocking towards the base and then the rocking up towards the top. If you bring your arms up to the ceiling, let your arms go over your head, let your legs extend, and notice if you can start to sense if the butt band and the AC line start to look at one another. And then bring everything back to center. Notice if you start to feel the awareness of how they go away from one another. Do that again as your arms and legs go away from one another. Notice if you can sense how the two backs of the bands look more at one another. Notice when your knees come in, if higher than the band starts to have a lot of weight and surface contact down, or if it stays more on the tape. When your arms and legs are extended, you're not to the full arch that you'd be when you would be in a handstand. But you'll start to feel how the band of the AC line and the tail band, the butt band, start to face one another a little bit, and so you'll get a sense of that. Take your arms overhead. If you keep them slightly off the mat though, to extend your legs, see if you can keep your upper arm bone so it's forward of your face. Start to take your hands out to the high V and notice if that shifts the weight at all on your butt band. Does it get lower? Does it get higher? And then bring your arms back by your ears a little bit, still keeping the upper arm bone above your face. And do that again as your arms start to approach the high V. Notice if that shifts any of the weight. Does your butt band change position a little bit? Notice if the top end and the bottom end have the surface contact on the mat, or if just one end has the surface contact. Try that again. You'll notice if both ends still have that connection, even though the band is tipped. You'll notice that that helps to keep your ribs, bottom ribs, anchored. Try that once more, find the high V. Take your legs to the low V and just notice if that creates even more of an arching effect with the back of the AC line and the butt band. Notice if they're looking at one another more. In the X position, it's a little bit more of an arch than it is when your arms and legs are together. See if you can get a sense of that position. And then you can bring your legs and arms back in. If you bend your knees, bring them back so your feet are flat. Bring your arms up, and then you can take your arms out to the side, let them rest. See if you can start to let both knees drop to the right. And notice on the right side, that side of the butt band will probably still have some pressure down into the mat. Notice if you feel like that side of it is looking more up towards your head, or does it look more down towards your foot? As you come up and your knees go to the left, again, get a sense of what the left side feels like it's looking at. Does it feel like it's arching more up towards your head? Does it feel like it's looking more down to the base of your body? And then do that again. Try that again, going each side. And just the side that your knees are going to, get a sense of where the butt band is facing. Do that once more each way. Come back to center. If you roll all the way over onto your right side and just bend your knees and put your feet flat. If you bend your knees about at a 90-degree angle, if you start to extend your left leg, see if you can kind of get a sense of where the butt band is facing. Notice if you start to bring it forward, if you can feel how it faces more towards the wall away from your head. And then if you start to take it, find the place where it feels like it looks straight to the wall behind you. And then take your leg behind you a little bit and notice if you can bring it to a point where it feels like it's looking more up towards your head. And just do that movement a few times and see if you can sense when it looks more directly at the wall behind you, when it looks more at the wall away from your head. And then when it looks more at the wall behind you and when it starts to look more up towards your head. And just do that again, kind of swinging it forward and back. If you could bring your leg behind you so you can let your foot rest. Notice in this position again if it's looking more up towards your head, is it looking more down? Bring the top arm up and see if you can start to tip your AC band a little bit on that side. So you start to open your chest slightly towards the ceiling. And just notice if your AC line and your butt band are looking at one another. And then start to curl everything, go the other way. Bring your hand forward. Do that again, start to bring your arm back. Notice if your AC line, if you need to, you can slide your left leg back further. See if your AC line and your butt band look at one another, and then bring it back to center. And try that again. Notice if your butt band, your AC band can start to look at one another. Do that once more on that side. If you find this position, bring your arm up, bring your head up, bring your leg up, and just notice where you're at in space. Notice if your arm is still in front of your head or it's behind it, and see if you can bring your upper arm in front of your head. See if your AC band can look at your butt band and find the position where your eyes could look up towards your hand and your arm would be closer to the front wall than your head. If you start to extend your bottom leg out to join and your other arm, push your hands towards the wall in front of you. Look where your hands are pushing. And notice if your AC line and your butt band face each other. It helps if your feet are off the ground. And notice your balance point. And this is basically almost your handstand position, if you're going to be in one. If you can balance on one side, you know that it's going to be easier for your handstand. And then just relax, come back to center, and if you swing yourself around so you can test out the other side. Again, if you bend your knees, you can support your head if you need to. Just start by extending the right leg and notice the butt band on that side. Start to find the place where you can take your leg forward and it feels like your butt band starts to look opposite of your head. And then see if you can start to find when it looks more parallel to the wall behind you. And then see how far your leg needs to go before it looks more towards the base of your skull. And just do that a few times, kind of swinging it around. Again, notice if you start to have that awareness of where it's facing. If you bring your leg to the back and let your leg rest behind you, if you bring your right arm up, start to take your right arm back. Make sure it stays forward of your face though, so your head has to go back because you tip your AC line. Notice if the right AC line, the right butt band start to look at one another. And then you can just relax everything a little bit to more of a curl. And try that again. See how much you can start to take your AC line to look at your butt band. Make sure that your upper arm bone stays forward of your face. So you're really tipping your AC line versus just pulling your arm back. And then bring it back to center. Try that again. You can move it on the mat if you want to keep your fingers on the floor. Again, notice if this side tips as easily as the other side, or maybe there's a difference here. Try that again. Try and tip your AC line to look towards your pelvis. Think about your butt band looking at your AC line. Notice if your head stays behind your upper arm bone. Do that once more. Try and tip your AC line to look at your butt band. Find your balance. Try and bring your leg up. Extend your bottom arm. Extend your bottom leg. See if your AC band is looking at your butt band. Notice if you could look where your hands are pointing. If you push, notice if your head is behind your hands or your hands behind your head. And see if you can look and see your fingers in front of your face. And again, notice if this side has as easy of a time balancing or this side might be a little bit more challenging. If it's more challenging to balance, it tells you that your underneath side, the AC line, isn't as connected. And then you can just release from there and you can relax, push yourself all the way up to sitting. And we're gonna grab one of the white balls, the smaller ones, and you can drape yourself over the top of it. There you go. Here you go. If you drape your belly over the top of the ball, this is going to be fun. If you just hang over, you guys can probably get your hands on the ground. This ball is a little big for me. Notice where your butt band faces, and it should probably face the wall behind you. My butt band seems to be pulling my tights down. So it's having an interesting effect. If you start to think about where the butt band is facing, see if you can start to reach your right heel back so it goes beyond your toes, and notice how that changes the facing of the butt band, if it makes it look more up or more towards your head. And then just release it back down, and then try the other side. Reach your heel back, try and get it beyond the ball of your foot, and notice where the butt band starts to face. And then release it back down. Try that again. Start to extend your heel back. Try and get your heel beyond your toes. Notice where the butt band faces, if it's facing more down or more up, and then releasing it. And then do the other side, try and extend it back. And then release. If you rock forward a little bit, come down onto your forearm bones. And notice how that changes kind of the angle of your butt band. It probably faces more up to the ceiling. If your tail shifts over behind your right leg, start to reach your right leg up and notice if your butt band is tipping. Notice if it looks more up at the ceiling, more towards the back of your head. And then release it back down. See if you can sense where it's facing. And then do the other side. Feel how your tail shifts behind that leg. It starts to draw a line up the wall behind you. Notice your butt band. Notice if it changes the direction that it's facing. Does it look more at your head? Does it look more at the ceiling? And then release back and down. Do that again. See if you can find your butt band. Swing your tailbone behind the right leg as it lifts. Notice if your AC band starts to look at your butt band on the right. Do you notice if they're coordinating more? And then release back and down. And then do that again, other side. Start to swing your tail over. Start to reach that leg. You can notice if your butt band starts to look at your AC line. Does your AC line look at your butt band? And then release. If you walk your hands forward just a little bit and your forearms forward, see if you can start to bring both legs up. Your tail points to where your heels are. It starts to slide up the wall behind you. Notice your butt band. As it comes up, start to tip your AC line, which will lift your forearms off the floor, coming up more into a balance point. Notice in this position if your AC line is looking at your butt band and vice versa. And then just release it all the way back down, coming back to your forearms. Do that again. Feel how as you start to reach your tail back and up, feel how your nose may reach forward and up, and your AC line starts to tip back to look at your butt band. Notice how much they can look at one another. And then release everything back and down. If you would like, if you can't see where you're at in the mirror, you might turn your head so it faces the side mirrored wall or faces this mirrored wall. And it helps to give you a perspective as where your feet are in relationship to your head. If you start to reach your tail back and up, as you come up, notice your AC line. And you might be able to look at yourself in the mirror and see if your AC line and your butt line are in the same height. And if you can find the place in the mirror where your AC band and your butt band are the same height off the ground, you'll notice that your feet are much further behind you. And that's kind of where they would have to be for the handstand. And then come back and down. Yeah, if you guys want to turn around so you can see that way, yeah, you'll have a different view if you look at that wall. And I don't know if Reynolds, you can see if the paper's in your way. But try that again. Think about your tail going back and up. Think about your AC line tipping to look towards your butt band. And just notice if you can find the place where your butt band is the same height as your AC line. And so if my legs are here, probably my butt band is higher than my AC line. But if I start to get my AC line to tip, it starts to get a little bit lower, but my legs will be pretty high. And then if I pull my chest up, my AC line and my butt band might be in exactly the same position, but you'll notice that your legs are gonna be pretty behind you if that's the case. And then release down. If your legs are really low, your AC line is probably up, but your butt band isn't. So just kind of notice if you have that balance. Try that once more. Start to reach your tail back and up. If you tip your acromion, so your AC line starts to look at your tailbone, your butt band starts to look at your AC line. Notice as you come up, see if you can find that place where they actually feel like they're the same level off the ground. And notice kind of where your head is looking oppositionally to your feet. And then relax all the way back and down. Once you start to find that position, it helps to know where you're at in space, getting comfortable with that. Push yourself all the way back. And Lisa, would you do me a favor? We're gonna grab some of the Bosus and bring them in here. Yeah. And I'm gonna move these mats out. So you're gonna see if you can try that on the Bosu, where you actually do have to find your balance. And Jan, I'm gonna move your mat just a little bit. And you can put it on this puppy. And put it facing that way. Yep. And so we'll have two. But see if you can give it a whirl. If you lay down on the Bosu, and if I think about where my AC line is, I'm gonna try and bring that up. And then I'm gonna try and bring my butt band up to the same height. And you're gonna see if you can find your balance. And if you really wanna test yourself, you can bring your arms forward, which is harder, but this is the handstand position. So you can give it a whirl. It's nice to have the big mat just because if you roll off the Bosu, you have lots of space around you to roll off on. Yes, we have enough for everybody, so. Noelle, would you grab this in and pull? So So if you're afraid of falling off, you can use the big mat. If you're not afraid of falling off, you can use just your small mat. It's kind of an experiment to figure out where your center needs to be. Usually your belly button would need to be like high centered. So kind of belly button-esque. And see if you can see yourself in the mirror a little bit. And Jan, you can have this one if you want, the big mat. Yeah, so see if you can start to find the balance point, and somebody can use that one if they want. It's tricky. Thank you. I get to try it again. Yes. How fabulous. But it just gives you an idea of where you're at as far as, because a handstand is a really, really large arch, it's a really, really big back bend, it will give you an idea of how much of the back bend you are comfortable being in. Again, if you put your belly button kind of right at the top, because your belly button is generally your center, and if you try and get your tail to lift your butt band first, and then see if you can start to tip your AC band to be at the same height. And if you feel comfortable reaching your arms forward. Very good. Because that's the position. Notice when you're looking in the mirror, if your collarbones are higher to the ceiling than your bicep, or if your collarbones are kind of down through, and see if you can bring your collarbones up so they'd be higher to the ceiling, than your biceps. Yeah, if you want to test it, this is easier versus arms in front is more challenging. And then whenever you need to relax, you can always relax. Yep, try it once more. See if you can find that place where your butt band looks at your back of the headband, your AC line. And then see if you can find your balance. And then relax all the way down. Come off of there. Since everybody has a Bosu, this works very nicely. If you lay down with your head and shoulders on the mat and your butt up on top. The trick is getting there. If you think about your tailbone, try and swing it behind one leg so it's over to one side, and then try and lower that leg towards the floor. And notice if you can feel your butt band start to shift on the Bosu, so it may start to look more at your head on that side. Notice if your AC band starts to look at the Bosu as well. And then try and bring it back up using your tail. Try the other side, try and shift your tail over and start to feel like your tail can draw a line across the ceiling and down the wall in front of you. Notice your butt band, if your butt band's tipping to look back. Notice if your AC line is tipping to look at your butt band. To bring your leg back up, see if you can use your tailbone, and notice if your butt band stays down or does it really want to teeter-totter up at the base, or does it keep its weight? Try that again on the other side if you shift your tail. Notice as your leg starts to lower. Again, notice how much of your butt band is down and weighted. When you bring your leg back up, notice if there's a big increase of pressure down in your lower back, Or if all the weight still does stay in your butt band, it just kind of rocks on the butt band towards the head side of it. Do the other side again, shift your tail over, start to lower your leg down. If you think about your butt band, just kind of rolling it on the ground, rolling it on the Bosu to bring your leg up, you're not going to lift any of it, but you're just going to kind of roll it a little bit. Notice with how little effort you can get that to happen, and you'll notice how your tailbone will draw the arc pattern to come up. See if you can roll your butt band to take your leg down, and you'll notice it will help swing your tail over and also make it swing down. And try and roll your butt band to come up. Notice if what's above your butt band wants to roll or lift or lower, or if you can just really lightly kind of rock on the butt band. Try that once more on the other side. Notice if your AC band starts to face your butt band as your leg goes down. And then try and roll. And see if the butt band can just rock to bring you up. On the way down, try it again once more, taking your leg down. And notice how much energy it takes to rock your butt band. And notice if your leg really swings or does it kind of go down in a controlled manner. And then bring your leg back up. And again, notice if it goes the same pace in that controlled manner. Or is there a lot more oomph? Try it once more on the other side. Notice as your leg goes down and you tip your butt band and your tail starts to shift over. Notice how much force and swinging there is. Notice if it's pretty controlled or does it ever speed up. If it can stay the same pace, moving at the same pace, you're really levering with your butt band. But if it suddenly accelerates, you're starting to use a lot of force and momentum somewhere in your back. Practicing this and practicing the balance on the Bosu is really good for starting to develop the leverage point. We're going to keep working on the headstand a little bit, but we're going to start to do a one-leg lever headstand versus legs on the elbow. And so this movement of being able to tip your butt band to shift your leg is just the same movement that we'll start to do when we're upside down, but you'll notice it doesn't take any effort or force. And the challenge is when we're upside down, suddenly we think it requires more, but it doesn't. And so the more you get the feel of the subtlety of it, the better. You can, any way that is possible, roll off of the Bosu, and that's always the fun part. And then we're going to bring the mats up against the wall. We'll move these guys up against and turn them the long way. And so you can use the squishier mat or you can use the mat that you've got.
Squishy mat.
I think the headstands are funner with the squishy mat, but. If you would like more padding for your head, you can feel free to hop on one of these mats. So the same idea that you were doing with your headstand, if you again start to remember, if I put my thumb, so my thumb pad goes right at the front of my ear, and then I lace my fingers together, that's where my head weight is going to be on the mat. So I'm going to put that down. Then once I get that organized, I can remove my fingers and bring my hands back so they're by my knees. If I lift my tail up, if I pretend that I have a big Bosu back where my butt band is, if I bring one leg up, just like I'm going to tip it, if I just keep tipping it over the Bosu, it should lift me up. And if I just keep tipping down. And so you can try doing that motion, tipping up and tipping down with the one leg. And see if you can start to get your whole body to come up, if your leg tips high enough and goes up far enough. Yep, and then you start to tip your butt like it could tip over the Bosu. It's just another way to approach a headstand. As you start to feel like your butt is tipping more, think about pushing down through the forehead side of your head a little bit more. Yep. Amanda, bring your head way back closer to your arms, or your arms way closer to your legs. It's bring your head and your arms a lot closer together. So that, yeah. There you go. And now shift with your legs. Shift them, your butt forward a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. And then go from there, and you'll have an easier time. And you can walk your feet forward a little bit too before you take one leg up. That helps. Yep, there you go. Yeah, Noelle, you can walk your feet forward too a little bit before you try and take the one leg up.
Is my head the right thing?
Yep, it looks good. Just think as you start to tip the butt band, just keep thinking about the forehead side having pressure. Yep, that's it. And keep tipping the butt band a little bit more, Amanda, so it looks at your AC line. Yep, yep, that's it. Yep, that's it. Yeah, if you just keep going with that, you'll eventually just float right up. But it just takes, the practice of it. Do you walk your hands back, Jan? Yeah, so you want your hands to be right by your legs when you're down. So if you find your head, it's a little far, they would be right in front. Like, so they're right, almost right in front of the knees. They don't have to be in that far, but like as far as kind of in that plane. Yep. And your elbows will be in tight to your body. Yeah, and then if you just stretch one leg up and think about tipping the butt band.
Let's see, this way.
Yeah, towards the wall. So it would look at your head. But you can't jump it. That's the trick. Oh. If you jump it, it's not safe for your neck, right? Because you start to put all the impact force in your neck. If you, one leg is usually better for most people than the other. So if you tried one leg and it didn't go very far, try the other leg. But it's just a matter of the tipping that gets me up versus jumping.
Yeah, it just goes.
It does. But it's the ability of the body to start to get the arch shape that is what gets you up. Yep, walk your back foot in a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Now give it a whirl. And I'm just going to put my hand here. And push down through your forehead a bit. Even more push down right there. There you go. Now go. Yep, and keep pushing down through the forehead side. Yep, that's it. If you keep pushing down through the forehead side, so your AC line starts to look up at your butt. Oops, other forehead side.
Neck feels like it's gonna snap.
It won't snap, but it definitely will feel tense.
Yes.
That's for sure. Yeah, this side has to be more strong the more you go.
Oh, so the leg side has to be more strong on the head side?
Yeah, the forehead side of your head has to have more pressure as you go up.
Oh, okay, I was doing it the opposite.
Yeah, so I think the front side of your face, the side closest to your feet, is going to have the most pressure. Yep, that's it. Yeah, you'll notice it'll make it, much easier to get your band to go. And really
push down through your head, Jan. There you go. Mm-hmm. Yep, and if you just tipped it enough, it would lift up. But, yeah. The more that you practice the tipping, if you can come down in a controlled way, weirdly enough, this applies to running and gait. If my butt band can come down in a controlled way, my tailbone is going to stay behind the top leg. And so instead of my tailbone falling, which puts all the impact in my front foot, normally in gait, my tailbone is always behind the leg behind me. And so as I start to land on the front foot, there's actually no weight on it in my landing. It can move around because all the weight is actually being held in my top leg. And the more practice that you have at the coming down, trying to keep all the weight behind the top leg, it starts to transfer to the gait so that when I step forward onto my front leg, I'm not putting all the impact force into the front knee. And normally all the weight would be in the back leg as I step. So being able to go up and down like that will start to translate into your walking and your running quite a bit so that you don't ever have impact forces in your knee joint. We're going to keep working on this next time, but be aware of your butt band. But we're also going to start rolling. So now that you know, these mats are big, we're also going to use the vaults too. So. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's it. Yeah, if you think about tipping the bottom leg butt band too, so the whole butt band goes, it helps.
Oh, the whole one?
Yeah, the whole butt band versus just the top side. The top side, the leg is kind of helping you tip it, but then if you can start to get the whole thing to tip it from there. Yep. Walk your bottom foot forward, Jan, a little bit. So you just get your feet a little closer to your head before you try and go up with the one leg. Yep, there you go. And it helps to actually walk them forward when you're in this position. It's a little easier, yeah. Mm-hmm. You really have to think about the arch, how your butt band's gonna look down, your AC line is gonna look up like a happy dog. Yep, and think about whichever leg is on the bottom, try and tip that side of the butt band as well. So it's all gonna go towards the mirrored wall and towards your head. We're also gonna start to work on the forearm stand. And so if you can start to just practice being in a forearm plank, so you get used to supporting your weight on your forearms. So if you just every now and again practice being here so that we can start to work on the forearm headstand or handstand. If you can start to be in a plank and start to get your breastbone to face forward, this is the position that you'd have to start to be to do the forearm handstand. Your butt, you can lift your butt up or else your breastbone can't face forward. But I would just practicing holding this position, trying to make your chest look at the wall in front of you. Make sure your butt stays above your head though. Yeah.
Is that good?
And just, yeah, start to work on just holding that position and getting used to being there. Ta-da! Very good. Does anybody have any questions about the tipping one leg version?
Should my neck get a terrible pain?
It should be achy, probably.
Should it feel like it's like scrunching?
And so the thing is, right, I can't go by feel. I have to actually sense if it's scrunching or not.
Feels like it's crunchy, but I'll have to.
If my head has the pressure in the correct place, it can't physiologically scrunch. So it may feel like it's stress, but which may be the case. Because it is more stress if you're not used to having it be in that position.
Sure. Is it like right here gonna be
Totally.
the whole thing hinged?
Yeah, because you're going to be in more of an arch with your neck.
And if you're not used to having your neck be in an arch and support weights, when it's in an arch and it supports weight, it will give you lots of feedback.
On their head, probably